What's up, everyone? Welcome to the CoralReefTalk Podcast. This is the first episode that we're doing, and what we're going to be doing is taking a look at an article from Reef Hobbyist Magazine. Now, Reef Hobbyist Magazine you can pick up at any of your local fish stores. They're in over 1,000 local fish stores across the U.S. If they're not at your local fish store, then you can go to reefhobbyist.com and check out their magazine there. Now, the issue we are looking at is the fourth quarter of 2018. This is volume 12. The front cover says The Wonderful World of Digis. But the article we're going to be taking a look at can be found on page 48 if you want to read along. And it's called Shroom Boom, and it's by Darwin Ngo. I don't know if I'm saying his last name correctly, but Shroom Boom. Now, this article is all about various types of mushrooms, and I found it very interesting. It talks about the rise in popularity between different mushrooms and how many years ago mushroom corals were considered mainly for beginners. And it's still true today. Mushrooms are a great beginner coral, but now mushrooms have emerged as one of the hottest types of corals to collect. Mushrooms of all shapes and colors are becoming highly sought after. Their in-demand caught the attention of many wholesalers and divers, resulting in more variety and types than we've ever seen before in the hobby, quoting a little bit from the article. And that's true. I mean, with the Worldwide Corals OG Bounce mushroom, you see that fetch a pretty penny. I mean, when it first came out for hobbyists or collectors to get, you saw the bounce mushroom for sale for $6,000. There's been some mushrooms, I believe there's one mentioned in this article that sold for $10,000, and that's a pretty penny when you're talking about a hobby. Now, most aquarium hobbyists are not going to spend that much money on corals, and there's some really nice mushroom corals out there that don't cost near that price tag. You can get corals, or you can get mushroom corals for $5, $10, $20, all the way from discosomas to recordias, rhodactis mushrooms. But how did this popularity begin? I mean, why did they get so popular in the first place? I mean, you have other corals that are very popular, and it's kind of like a fad, right? These corals come and go, or there's different seasons that these corals are popular. I know acans have their season when they were really popular, Lord's acans. Then you had Chalice Corals. Chalice Corals are really big just because of the variety of colors that you can get out of a Chalice Coral, and the easy care of these corals, right? So these corals are not only popular because of their color, but they're popular because they're not that difficult to keep in a reef aquarium. Now, it goes on to say that the popularity of these corals can arguably be traced back to the introduction of the WWC, or Worldwide Corals Bounce mushroom, and that's what I was kind of getting at before, is when this bounce mushroom came on the market, you saw those nice orange bubbles on top of the mushroom. It's a little odd, a little cool, lots of color, orange, green, blue. Before that, though, the article mentions there weren't really any mushrooms that were highly sought after other than like the jawbreaker, discosoma mushroom, and there's a few other ones in there too. But this bounce mushroom really hyped up hobbyists in search of more colors, more variety, different types of mushrooms. So the article states that it started with the WWC bounce, and I can agree with that. That's one of the first photos that I saw of a bounce mushroom was the WWC bounce, and I'm not gonna lie, I really wanted one, and I still really, really want one, but for the price tag of $6,000, $600, even $200 for a mushroom that's probably like an inch or so, I mean, I think $60 and $80 corals are expensive. So for me to purchase a bounce mushroom, I'm either going to have to really want it really bad enough to save up that type of money for it, or just enjoy the video and pictures that I see online, or drive down to Worldwide Corals and check theirs out in their display tank. But this kind of brought a new light for mushroom corals, and it kind of brought hobbyists back to really appreciate mushrooms again. And it made them realize that mushroom corals offered bright colors, unique textures, and they were just easy to care for, as the article mentions. After that, the article continues to talk about different types of mushrooms, the first one being the Discosoma mushroom. Now, this is characterized by the individual's smooth oral disc. These mushrooms tend to multiply by moving and leaving a part of their foot behind. Now, many mushrooms, that's how they propagate, or that's how they grow. They release like their little mushrooms or a piece of their foot. It grows into a new mushroom, and you get a cluster of mushrooms left behind. Now, just looking at some of these mushrooms on the next page, you have the original tie-dye Discosoma, the Andretti's Ultimate Jawbreaker, which is green and orange, the Kryptonite Discosoma, which is like a dark green and a bright green. Like Kryptonite, I know you can't see them on the podcast, but if you're following along and looking at the article, you can see some of the colors that you get out of these mushrooms. Now, when I first got into the hobby, one of the first corals that I put in my tank was a mushroom coral, just because I researched and I read how easy they were to take care of and to keep. And I started with solid red Rhodactis and a solid green Rhodactis, and I still have those mushroom corals in my tank today. They've grown, they've propagated. I've sold some frags. I've kept some frags. I've kept some of them around, and they're still in my 210 gallon right now, and they're doing really well. Now, he talks about the Jawbreaker a little bit, how it was known starting off completely orange colored, and then it gained 3 additional colors over time: red, green, and purple, and that there's 2 strains floating around, and one has been branded as the tie-dye by the Digital Fish Room and the Paletta strain. There's not very many tie-dyes remaining in the hobby. However, the tie-dye or the Paletta strain tends to propagate more quickly and is the more common variety that we know as Jawbreaker today. Now, there's not much information available about where the Paletta lineage originated, but of course you can imagine that it probably came from a local fish store. Now, you can find many unique mushrooms just by looking around your local fish stores. I'm sure they get a mixed bag of mushrooms, if you will. They probably get an assorted variety of different mushroom genuses, different types that they put out. So you could probably find one that's very unique that's in there, unless they're one of the high-end collecting local fish stores that they know exactly what colors they're looking for and what strain that they're trying to get in their store. But you can probably find a really good one. And what's neat about mushrooms that I've noticed about my red Rhodactis is that they can change and they can morph, and that's kind of, I think, what it was getting at with the Jawbreaker, how it started off completely orange colored and then it gained 3 additional colors. I've noticed some of my Rhodactis over time start to form little bubbles on top, and I think that is what a bounce coral is. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's a type of Rhodactis mushroom. But if you continue to read on where it talks about Rhodactis, it says the first type of Rhodactis variant is the smooth skin type, and these have small bumpy nodules on their bodies and generally don't grow much larger than 2 inches across. Out of all the Rhodactis, these tend to be the most finicky, thriving only in very low light and flow. Now, I've had my Rhodactis in a variety of different spots in my tank. I've had them up high on the rock work. I've had them in the sand bed. I've had them in low light, somewhat high light, and they've grown or changed or morphed, however you want to say it, and they've grown little bumps on them that resembled a bounced mushroom. So I'm pretty sure that these mushrooms can change depending on the lighting, the flow, and the environment that they're in. The second type of Rhodactis that it talks about is the hairy variant, where there's larger nodes or nodals, or the bubbles covering the entirety of the mushroom. This variant of Rhodactis can get very large, easily over 6 inches in captivity. So there's large Rhodactis, small Rhodactis. So there's different types of mushrooms out there for everyone. And if you're looking to get into the hobby and you're just starting with this whole reef hobby thing, and you think corals look amazing, I would say start slow. Start with mushroom corals. Mushrooms, it's what I started with. They're great. Some are more easy to keep than others, and once you read on where it talks about the Recordia mushroom, that's like just covered in these little bubbles. These mushrooms look amazing to me. I mean, orange, greens, blues, reds, yellows. The Black Widow bounce mushroom, it's got yellow, red, and blue mixed in. Now, I find that I find that Recordia mushrooms can be a little more challenging to keep. Some tanks they just melt in, and some tanks they last a little while before. In my opinion, mushrooms are a great starter coral, and I'm sure most of the experienced reefers out there would agree. Now, in conclusion to this article, mushrooms are some of the most colorful yet undemanding corals to own. And with so much variety in color, size, and texture, it's easy to find a mushroom that will suit your reef. The demand for mushrooms hasn't declined over the past few years, and it certainly isn't going to anytime soon. So, that was the article from Reef Hobbyist. You can go to their website, reefhobbyistmagazine.com, to check out more of this article. And this article was found in the fourth quarter 2018 volume 12 of Reef Hobbyist Magazine, and it's all about the mushroom boom. I mean, when I started a little over 6 years ago and I added mushrooms to my tank, I really didn't hear anything about the bounce mushroom, or go after mushrooms as my high-end coral pieces for my tank. I mainly wanted acants. I mainly wanted Chalice Corals. I'm a huge Chalice Coral fan. Love Chalice Corals. I also love Zoanthids. Zoanthids are typically easy to care for as well. But what are your thoughts on the mushroom boom? Do you think that the WWC bounce started it all off? Do you agree with that? Was there another bounce mushroom or something before that? Do you have a bounce mushroom? What are your thoughts? Let me know. Check out the Facebook page, The Coral Reef Talk, for weekly videos. And if you're not following that page, go ahead, click the like button on the page. And if you watch my videos on YouTube, go to youtube.com/TheCoralReefTalk. Be sure to subscribe over there. And I'll catch you in the next episode of the Coral Reef Talk Podcast.